Alright folks, so today I'm going to show you how to paint a simple tree, and that's pretty much it. So let's get into it. I got my colors already on the palette here, kind of messy. Phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, red, burnt sienna, titanium white. So that's it, and let's get into it. Try to get the camera close to the canvas so you guys can see what I'm working on, because most people always tell me to move the camera closer, so I'm going to do my best. And you know, if you're working on a painting and you have a background like a blue sky in the ground, you want that to be completely dry already and then paint your tree on. So I'm just going to show you how to paint the tree. Going to start getting into the simple things like this tutorial lesson video. I mean, I've done so many lessons that you know, I guess my lessons have been too advanced for some people. So I've gotten some requests to show how to paint all the simple stuff, so that's what I'm going to get into. Alright, so what I'm mixing up, I just got some burnt sienna, some phthalo blue, and some red. Kind of want to get a purpley brown mixture. This is going to be for the trunk. So you just decide where you want your tree and what shape. It depends on what kind of tree you're doing, but they're all pretty much the same. You know, if you want to make a big oak tree or just, you know, a small skinny trunk, doesn't matter. So there's my tree trunk pretty much. You know, nothing too detailed. And the ground would be back here somewhere, just to give it some little, some perspective there. Let's try to move this up. Alright, so there's the tree trunk. Just a really dark shadow color. Now you can start painting on the branches using that same color. And you may need to use some stock photos if you are unsure of the way branches are shaped and such. Something I still have trouble with from time to time. So don't be ashamed about it. Just do your best. Try to envision a tree without its leaves and just see what you come up with. But you don't have to, it doesn't have to be too detailed, because most of this is going to be covered up with leaves. And you can use a thinner brush if you want, which we'll get into here in a minute. And usually with the branches, they're thicker at the bottom and they get thinner as you go out toward the top. They get a lot thinner and smaller, because you need the support. The tree needs the support from the bottom. So usually the trunk is like the biggest thing, and then you know, the branches get smaller and smaller from there. So you can get a liner brush if you want. Okay, and the brush I was just using was a number 2 filbert, just so you know. Now I'm going to use a number 8 liner brush, using the same color. So just mix a little bit of water in there, not too much, just get the brush wet, and then you want it to be a little watered down so that you can you know, just stick some branches on like this, and see, sometimes you need to put a little bit more water to get it to feel right. But it doesn't have to be perfect, you know. You just, this is just kind of the map for the shape of your tree and for where you're going to put the leaves, etc. I'm just doing this really quick. I mean, you can take your time on it. You know, you just want to make branches all different ways and such. So there's kind of a tree. I mean, it's not the best shape. You kind of want branches back here and stuff. But I think you guys get the idea. You know, you just want it to, you know, look as much like a tree as you can. In whatever shape you want. Alright. I'm just trying to save time here because I don't want to make super long videos. Because then not many people will watch them and get the benefit from them. So I'm trying to get to the point as soon as possible. But there's the tree, and yeah, I made so many other videos about trees and just painting in general. I mean, it's so simple. I think some people think about it too much and they overcomplicate it. So now I'm getting some phthalo blue. You can use some ultramarine too. I really like phthalo blue to make some greens. Mix in some yellow. You want a dark green. You can mix in some red or some burnt sienna. Give it more of an earthy tone. Kind of neutralize it. Just want a dark green. And now the brush I'm using is a number 4 filbert. Number 4 filbert. You can use a flat bristle brush if you have one of those. So what you do now is kind of imagine the shape of this tree, you know, kind of envision the whole outline and where the leaves would be, and then just start kind of dabbing them on. You know, all different directions. Now this is the under layer. So kind of think of it as being like the back of the tree. You know, it's kind of because when you put on the highlights, it'll bring those leaves forward, and these are kind of the background leaves. You know, don't worry about being too detailed, because that'll just come in time. If you're a really detailed person, then go ahead. But I find that being a little more painterly now is really helping me focus on light and color instead of details and how things should look. You know, something to that extent. So what you do is you layer on some dark color wherever leaves would be. Very simple. This is going to be like the shadow of the leaves. And you can use, see, the thing about it is you can use so many different kinds of brushes here. You can use, for around the edges, you can get a smaller liner brush. You know, if you want to get detailed and make like small little leaves sticking out and stuff. That's more final touches on a painting. You know, if you want more details, if the tree is the main focus of the painting. In a few minutes here, on the highlights, we'll use a smaller, we'll go back to the number 2 filbert. You can even use a 1-inch brush if you have one of those, and get through this really quickly, and get some cool, interesting shapes. So just be creative and experiment with what kind of, you know, what you think works best for you, and then just give it a shot. You know, I've done so many different tree paintings. I've used every kind of brush. And I don't know. I don't know what I like best yet. I'm still still trying to figure it out. But yeah, I've been working on light lately and color, so I'm just trying to work on that. And just be freer with the brush strokes and kind of pay attention to my strokes. You know, brush strokes are important because they're kind of like a musician uses certain notes in a song to write a song. You know, artists use different kinds of brush strokes, and you want to have the most, you know, you want to have interesting strokes. You know, you want a lot of variation, and you want it to be appealing to the eye, and just leave interesting shapes here, because you want your paintings to stand out from other artists. You want to kind of have your own style, start trying to build your own style, and you do that by creating interesting strokes and having interesting shapes. Alright, so as you can see, the tree's kind of taking shape here. I kind of just did this, it's kind of like an oak tree or something. It's just like a really, you know, you can tell it's just a big tree. Guys probably can't see up that far. That's okay though. I'll zoom it out in a little while. So I'm just trying to make interesting shapes here, and you don't want a tree too like circular. You know, like so you want to have it dip in here, and you know, come back out, and you know, just think of where all these branches would be. You know, go outside and look at a real tree if you have to, and just look at all the different shapes and things poking out everywhere. And try to take your time with it. You know, don't rush it. So just continue painting on the dark areas. Don't fill up all the little white spots, but just take a step back every once in a while and just look at the overall shape of your tree and how it's coming out. I'm going to move it up a little bit. I'm going to move this back just a little bit so you guys can see the whole thing for the most part. So there's the tree. I think it's a pretty good shape. It's pretty cool looking. You know, there's interesting things going on. You know, and sometimes the leaves curl upward when it's going on the outer edges. The leaves kind of curl upward like this. So just try to give that illusion. You know, kind of take some of your leaves and just on the edges curl them up like that, because that's usually how the trees grow. They grow up toward the sunlight. Some trees are opposite. Some of them curl downward, so you can have you can show some variation and have some of them curling down, just here and there. So there's interesting shaped tree. So clean off your brush there, some water, and I think I'll move into a smaller brush now, number 2 filbert again. And you know, this is still very wet. We can put some highlights on the trunk a little bit. So for the trunk, try to make that same, well, let's just We'll get some yellow and burnt sienna and some white. And it all depends on what kind of light is coming through. If it's an evening light, you want it more orange. It really depends. And whatever color the tree is. So we'll just paint this on. We're going to say the light's coming from over here. So just try to make some interesting highlight shapes. And most of this is going to be dark because the tree is shadowing it. So that's probably about all the highlights we need right there for the tree for now. Maybe a little bit right here, like just show like light shining through the leaves a little bit. So that looks pretty interesting. And we'll highlight it a little more at the end, but we're going to let that dry a little bit because that's kind of like the middle ground, you know, not like not the really bright highlights, just the main color, because now we have the shadow, the main color, then we'll put on the highlights, and now we're going to start putting the main color on the leaves because we have the shadow on. So that green color you had, that you were just using, add some white to it. And if need be, if you need to add some more yellow, you almost want just a light yellow color. But you can mix in a little bit of blue. Even some red as well. Red kind of neutralizes it. Alright. Because neutrals are very important, I've been learning. So, well, I'll get into that in separate videos. I'll keep it simple today. So, the light's coming from over here, shining downward. So now you got to think, where is the sun? Where is the sunlight hitting this tree? You know, and wherever you think it's hitting, just start putting it on. And since this is still kind of wet, it'll kind of blend. So you don't want to overwork it too much. You kind of just want to throw this lighter color on. And try to add some variation. Add a little touches of white or more yellow and here and there. Just depends. Just want a lot of variation. And be sure to leave the dark areas. So if there's light hitting right here, it'll be shadow on the other side. So you kind of want to leave some dark areas on the other side of the highlights. Like I said, if you need to, just use some stock photos. Usually those really help beginners out. They help me out. I still use them from time to time. But I've been able to not use them as much anymore. When I first started painting, it was really hard to visualize something and make it look realistic. But as I kept practicing, I was able to manipulate the stock photos the way I wanted and use them. And now I don't even really need to use them. So everyone's different. Just depends, but I promise you, the more you practice, the better you will become, because that's just how things work. And remember, try to make some interesting strokes here. Keep it interesting. So now you can see the trees kind of coming to life, and you don't want to highlight too much. But just think about where the sun is hitting, like I said, and take a step back every once in a while and check out your tree. Make sure you're not highlighting too much. You want to really be thinking about it because sometimes, if you ever watch Bob Ross, he says, you know, it starts feeling good, and then you realize that you put too many highlights on, and it kind of ruins the illusion of depth, of realism. So, and on the back side, the shadow side here, there's probably some reflected light, you know, kind of getting over. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. You know, we got some really nice dark shadows here, some of the light's peeking through in some areas, which we can at the end, we can even make those a little more apparent. If you'd like, even around the edges here, you can make it a little sharper by adding the sky color. Like if you had a blue sky, you can throw in some of the blue sky in here a little bit, and it'll really make the light kind of shine through. Alright, so let's work on the trunk a little bit more. So you get that brown color you had earlier, add some white to it, maybe a little bit more yellow. Because if you keep adding white, it'll dull the color. So by adding a little more yellow along with the white, it'll kind of keep it nice and just full of color and less dull. So we're just gonna, you could even use the small liner, really small script liner. I don't even know what size it is. It says 18/0, so that's a really small one. So you could use that for this as well, but I'm just gonna use the number 2 filbert we've been using, and you know, just in a few small places. Gonna lighten that up a little bit more. Just in a few small areas. Put on the brightest highlight. Just here and there. Alright. And that may be too much. We may have to go back and add a little bit of darker brown. But you know, a painting is, I was reading a book the other day by Kevin McPherson. Really great oil painter. It's been inspiring me a lot lately. He said a painting is nothing more than a series of corrections. And when you're done making corrections, the painting is finished. So I'm going to make a video about that later too. That's a great way to put it. Alright, so trunk looks pretty good now. Alright, so we're going to highlight these leaves just a little more. This paint is all still very wet. At least mine is. But that doesn't matter. So I have the green here. Just going to add even more white to it. And I'm going to have to get some more yellow paint, so bear with me. So I'm just going to add more yellow to this green mixture. More yellow and white. You know, think about leaves in the bright sunshine. And that's kind of the color you want. Whatever you envision, you know, don't just follow my lead, you know. Whatever trees look like in your world, and paint those. So I got this nice highlight color. We're not going to put a lot of this on here, only in key spots of where you want the viewer's eye to be. You know, where you want the focus to be. And the light's coming from over here, so that's kind of the area of the tree up here that's going to be in focus the most. going to have the most detail. It's going to have the most highlights. You know, and just try to make it interesting. You also want the most contrast to be there. So try to leave some of these dark shadows in there and add some nice highlights right next to them. And it'll really make it pop. And remember to make interesting interesting shapes and all different directions. You know, these leaves probably go in all different ways. So keep that in mind. A little bit of reflected light back here. A little bit of highlights down there. That's probably about all we need. Could add a little more. It just depends. It's a very delicate balance, and you don't want to disturb that balance. You know, kind of connect some of these highlights together instead of just having single leaves. You know, big bunches of branches connected together. Alright, so that's probably good. Don't want to mess with it too much. I want to leave some interesting things going on that really attract the eye. Even down here in the front, you can put some leaves kind of like that are sticking out in the front. They're getting hit by some sun, maybe. Alright. So I'm going to stop right there. And maybe let's add some grass. Might as well just throw a little grass tutorial in here as well. I'll have some navigation in the comments for you guys too. So if you just want to see the grass, you can just click on the number and it'll show you. Or I'll chop this into 2 videos, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, maybe I'll do that 2 videos. So that was how to paint a tree, and hope you guys enjoyed that one. So very simple. Like and subscribe if you wish to see more. Next video coming soon is going to be this grass, so stay tuned for that, and I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this was very helpful. I feel like I've gotten a lot better at making trees. So there's the finished tree from far away. Probably want to stand this far away from your painting when you're doing it. You know, here and there, take some steps back, 6 feet back, and just look at the overall picture, and then kind of judge where you'll need some darker shadows, and you know, take a 20-minute break, go eat some lunch, come back, look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and you'll see right away what it needs. If it needs more shadowing, things like that. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Take care of yourself. Peace.